So I've begun to take entertainment security work with a group who handles a lot of the sporting events and concerts in southern Alberta, in Lethbridge, Calgary, Medicine Hat, sometimes Edmonton, I guess. Um, this last weekend, I did my first two concerts. I did a hockey game before that, and now I've done my first two concerts. And I wanted to share a little bit of my experience with that. Something that I noticed, or that I was paying attention to at least, that I found interesting. Um, yeah, in general, I'm enjoying security work, and I think I'm going to do more of it. And I might also invest in getting an investigations license so I can do some of that as well. But but the entertainment security group that I'm working for, it's just it's just a part time thing whenever there's shows in town, which is kind of cool because you get to pretty much you get to see the show for free. Actually, get paid to see the show. Um, I did, like I said, two shows this last weekend. One of them was Johnny Reid, who is kind of a Scottish Canadian country singer, and the other one was Disturbed, which is, I don't know what you'd call them, rock. And I searched the internet for images that might show me at either of these two concerts, because in both of them I worked up on at the stage. For Johnny Reid, I worked stage right, and for Disturbed, I worked the barricade on towards stage left. So this is the only image that I could find that had that kind of perspective that somebody posted, where you can see me, and you can really just barely see me. You can see my, my head. I'm the security for the barricade, furthest along on stage left. You see the row of four speakers, and I'm right in front of that row of four speakers, the four speakers that are on stage there, right in front of some massive subwoofers. uh, and this is just the opening band for Disturbed. This was Saint Asonia, who have some hits in their own right. But yeah, so I worked at a couple of different shows. I'm enjoying the work. I'm going to do more of it. But I am noticing things, just in the juxtaposition of what went on with these two shows that I thought was interesting, and I figured I'd share it because I think it speaks somewhat to our psychology and the way we kind of predispose ourselves towards certain patterns of behavior. So I'll start with my experience with the Johnny Reid show. And this guy was quite an entertainer. I was surprised. I was not thinking that I would really enjoy a country show, but I was wrong. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time, and this guy was great in his opening act. Especially, he had two opening acts, and I especially enjoyed the first one. I can't remember the guy's name, unfortunately. But in any case, this was a great show. And one of the things about Johnny Reid is that he didn't want a barricade, right? He didn't want a barricade to stand in front of him and his audience, and he had chairs out there on the floor, so it was a sitting audience. Not that they didn't get up; they did. They gave standing ovations. Some of them would go off to the sidelines and dance a little bit, if they'd come up to the stage, which some of them would, he would often go and shake their hands. If they were taking his picture, he might take the camera from them and take a picture of himself and them, or if they're shooting video, he might move around and show different band members up close doing their thing. It was very cool, and it was totally okay for them to be there was myself on stage right and another guard on stage left, keeping a close eye on things. If anybody up at the stage were to do anything inappropriate, we would have been all over it. But nobody did anything like that. They just wanted their 2 seconds with this guy, and he enabled that to happen during his show. He did have a really serious bodyguard who stood off the stage left as well, and was watching along with us. But he brought this is a point in the show here in this image where he brought a group of children from one of our local elementary schools, and they were part of his show, and he sang with them. They had obviously been prepped a little bit for this, but that was pretty cool to see him bring some of our local kids up on stage. And there was one point where he jumped off the stage at stage right where I am, and proceeded to dance his way through the entire auditorium. And I'm talking through the entire auditorium. I mean, he went up, he went to the back, he went up the stairs, he moved around, through there. He stopped, he danced with ladies, shook people's hands, gave high fives, took pictures, all while singing a song. Eventually wound his way back up, got up on stage right. His bodyguard was with him the whole way. But in either case, there wasn't a heavy presence of security or this great buffer between him and his audience, and the audience was of all ages, right? Because it was, I think, it was very inviting. Well, part of it is the style of the music itself, of course, but it was very inviting. One of the guys who's worked security for these shows many years told me that country shows can actually be the worst in terms of people getting, audience members getting a little out of hand and crazy. But I think in part because of Johnny's open approach and the non-existence of the barricade and the floor seating, and all of these different factors. He even moved some. There were some people who had seats way in the back that he went around and had somebody go around and give them special bracelets so that they can come up on the floor and enjoy the show a little bit more, instead of watching from so far back, because there was standing room on the floor. So it was nice. And it was a good show, and it kind of brought everybody in to the fold. You didn't feel you felt like you were part of it. You could be part of the show, and it was very enjoyable. Not to say that Disturbed wasn't enjoyable, but Disturbed was a different kind of experience. So you can't really see it well here, but there is a barrier between the edge of the stage and the audience. There is a barrier, and there is a line of security guys standing in front of that barrier, myself included, and the audience is on the floor is standing, and it's almost all people of a certain age bracket, right, between 18 and 30, perhaps. I mean, And of course, there's going to be a little bit of variance, but in general, there's a certain age here of the audience, and things were, more interesting from a security perspective with this show. In I guess I mean there was more action, I should say, to be had. Um, the audience was participating in a different way, and in many respects responding to the barrier, right? Responding to the presence of the barrier in the presence of security. And so you'd have guys, crowd surfing their way over the barrier so that we'd have to catch them. One guy, I swear, he would have got a concussion at least, because when they come over the barrier, they're coming over at the height of the people who are pitching them over. So they might go over at 6 feet off the ground, and if security's not there to catch them, they're dropping 6 feet onto the floor. And if they're, you don't know what's going. When you're crowd surfing, you could be being tossed in this, kind of end over end. You can be on your back. Most likely you're not going to be in any position where you're going to land nice and smoothly from a 6-foot drop. So, as security, we had to be there on hand to catch these guys so they didn't hurt themselves. And one guy would have definitely got a concussion because he came fast. Like, we didn't see him until he was coming over the barrier. And when he did, one guy was able to get there quick enough to kind of like catch his lower half, but his upper half was headed to the floor at, almost straight falling pace. And I was able to catch his head in my hand about a foot before it bounced off the floor. So it totally saved his cranium. And I don't know if he realized it entirely, how close he was to at least getting a concussion, if not worse. And so, yeah, there was this kind of stuff going on, which was predicted. And is part of a rock show these days, and what happens when you have a barrier, and when your show is geared toward people of a certain age bracket and not broad, like in the way that Johnny Rain, he had people there from early childhood all the way up to the elderly. But Disturbed concert wasn't like that. Over, the vast dominant audience was this young crowd. And then the young crowd were encouraged to do the rock and roll thing by the presence of the barrier and the strong security presence. When you look at what we did with Johnny Rain, there was, is it Reed or Rain? I think it's Reed. There was just one of us at either end of the stage, and there was a roving security on the floor. And there was other security around if we needed them to come down. But when it came to Disturbed, I mean, we marched out there to get behind the barrier a half hour before the doors opened, and there was a group of us, and we were the guys who were going to be able to handle whatever might come our way at the barrier. And some stuff, not too bad, but some stuff came around. One guy tried to jump up on the stage on my end, and we caught him, brought him down, and he was, that was it for him for the concert. He was bye-bye. We were told anybody that tries to get up on the stage, that's it for them. They're out the door. And so that's what we did. But people doing the crowd surfing thing, that's, unless they're doing it again and again and again, the same guy. But otherwise, yeah, we just let them go. We were challenged by a couple of people, wanting to They were drunk and wanting to give us shit, but you know, they're just uh, they're just acting dumb because they're drunk and they're wanting to play the game with the authority figures, kind of a thing. But anyway, you know, what I observed here, what I noticed, what I've been talking about is, you know, what happens. What is the difference when you put a barrier up, um, and people standing on their feet, as compared to when you have no barrier and chairs and are inviting to all ages and not a strong security presence? You know, you're predetermining the behavior you're going to see there. And, you know, given at a rock concert, you want to have a certain kind of fun emerge there, which is a fun that's on the edge of the safety realm, right? You want people to be safe. You want them to have a good time, be safe, but you also want it to be a little edgy, right? So you got to create that context, and you know, one way to create it is to throw a big security presence up there and put a barrier and put people on their feet and but and incite them, you know, to get excited and get going. It was fun. I enjoyed both, you know, both approaches, and just the eye opener, the idea that you might predispose a lot of behavior depending on, you know, how you arrange um, the scene, right? The context. If you arrange the context in a certain way, people respond to what they have been led to expect in that context, right? But if you throw something else at them, they're going to respond differently. So it's just interesting to think about. But yeah, that's my new gig. I've been doing security. I've been doing other stuff too. I've been hustling a lot in my economic life, um, trying to make money in several different ways. But I have been getting into the security stuff, and so far very much enjoying it. So I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more in this regard on this channel in the future.